Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. I'm super excited to be back again to chat to you a little bit today. The topic for today's conversation or Chef Ed session is going to be about how to increase the variety in your daily menu. I've had so many of my clients actually asking about that, and it's often one of the focus points for the weeks ahead is how to increase variety. And for all of us, I mean, for working parents, it's difficult. We know it's difficult. You get into a set routine and you just want to provide food for the family, and whatever works. But yeah, I think it's really important that we do try and increase the variety. There's so many health benefits to eating different foods, and I'm hoping that, yeah, we can chat about that today. Please swipe in, let me know that you're here. Hopefully I won't speak for too long and we can have a nice sort of Q&A session towards the end of it. Yeah, you can share your stories as well and some advice and tips for the fellow Jeffers. But yeah, let's get going. We'll start off with a few slides just to set the scene, and hopefully we'll get some questions going. Hi Debbie, lovely to see you. I'm sure you're also super happy that it's a Friday today. Hi Leslie, great that you're here. Okay, so if we have a look at some slides, so as I said, variety is the spice of life and especially also good health. So what do we know, and what does the science, what does the research tell us? And I think one of the best ways to sort of establish how important this is to have a look at the food-based dietary guidelines. So I've brought up the latest ones, which were created in 2012. It seems like quite long ago, but yeah, that's the most recent dietary guidelines for South Africa. And you can see right on the top of the list is enjoy a variety of foods. It just shows it's sort of the order of importance, and that comes right at the top there. And you might be wondering sort of why is it so important? Different foods are made up of different compounds. Basically, there's different vitamins, different minerals, different phytonutrients, which are like plant compounds. And all of these different nutrients are present in different amounts. And to ensure that you get sufficient nutrients in your daily diet or your daily input of food, you need to have variety. Another thing that we've shown over and over again is around food fatigue. And I don't know about you, but I've seen that often with my kids even. You sort of find something that they absolutely love, and then you kill it. You sort of, one example for me was sort of mixed peppers, the red and yellow peppers. My daughter Kate absolutely loves them, but I gave it to her sort of every day in the lunchbox when she was younger, and eventually she was like, Mum, I can't do them anymore. And it's the same with adults as well. We get tired, even of a good thing. I've also sort of so many clients in the past, they would say, oh my word, I can never see an egg again, because for them diet is sort of boiled eggs for breakfast, lunch and supper. Even though eggs are good food, people go off it. If you do too much of one thing, you go off it. And also lastly, but definitely not the least important, is around gut health. Gut health is so important, and we're showing more and more that variety of foods, and especially when it comes to plant foods, is critical when it comes to ensuring a healthy gut. So yes, I hope sort of those 3 points resonate with you. I'm sure you can all relate to the food fatigue. And it doesn't have to be sort of exotic foods that we add to our intake. It really doesn't. It can be really, you can keep it basic, you can keep it simple. You can still have sort of a meal that comprises sort of 4 or 5 ingredients, but the trick there is to mix it up a little bit, so not every day is the same veggies. I think a lot of you, hi everybody, it's lovely to see you all here. But I think a lot of the time as well, it's a case of sort of, let's have the broccoli, let's have the carrots, and it's repetitive because that's what the kids like. But you really, really need to mix it up a little bit. Another point there is also, don't just assume your kids are not sort of, they're just averse to all vegetables. You need to reintroduce them, and that's really important. I often hear that's a sort of parents saying, you know what, we can't have any other vegetables because Johnny and Sue, they're not into it. They will only eat their broccoli, or they will only eat their carrots, and they're almost labeled that way. It's like, my kids are non-veggie eaters. It's really important that you keep reintroducing those foods and get clever about the way, and get creative about the way that you reintroduce them. Maybe don't sort of put a whole pile of kale on your child's plate and say, there you go, new vegetable, let's eat. Even for an adult, that might be a little bit scary. So be clever, be creative, but definitely I'd like to challenge all of you to add something new into next week's menu. So when you're planning the Sunday or the Saturday before doing your shop, just think variety, variety, variety. Okay, so let's just move on now to the next slide. So your question might also be, so yes, we need variety, but what variety do we need? Where should we focus the variety? Should we get a whole lot of different kinds of red meat? Have different red meat every day of the week? Should we be focusing on the protein foods for variety? And I think this slide over here sort of says it best. What you can see here, and this is actually a really recent study in the American College of Cardiology from 2020, and you can see literally from the picture where should most variety lie. The foods that we need to eat in most abundance in terms of volume, it's going to be your plant-based foods. And that incorporates your fruit, your vegetables, your non-starchy vegetables, also sort of oils, legumes, nuts, seeds, all of those fall into that first layer of foods. Next up, you'll see that more and more the research is actually showing that more of a pescatarian type eating habits is good. So fish comes up there in terms of the second level, and you can see there the volume of fish is not nearly as much as the plant-based foods, but a lot more than the red meat, which is sitting right at the top, and the chicken and cheese and eggs just below that. So the question or the point that I'm trying to make here is that when you're looking at different variety, yes, certainly have different protein foods. So have your red meat once or twice a week, have your chicken, have your eggs, but when it comes to variety, try and get different kinds of fish in. Have fish at least twice a week. If you're somebody who doesn't typically have a lot of fish, challenge yourself, go out of your comfort zone and start including different kinds of fish, different ways of preparing the fish as well. Ideally, we should all be having fish at least twice a week in order to reap the benefits of the fish, which is the omega-3 fatty acids. It's also a very, very lean protein. So that's important. So when I'm sort of talking about introducing more variety to your diet, we're looking at all different levels, but the place you can make the best and the biggest impact would be on the plant-based foods. Myself and Heather, we were on Jeff Ed a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the microbiome. And we mentioned there as well is that ideally, from a health point of view, all the research is showing that we want to aim for at least 30 different plant-based foods per week. Now, I don't know about you, but that scares me. That's all, what? How many? And then once you start sort of adding it up, it actually is quite doable. It seems a bit daunting, but it is doable. You need to just get creative. And when we're talking about plant-based foods, we're talking about legumes. We're talking about the different plant oils. We're talking about your fruits. We're talking about your vegetables. We're even talking about different herbs. So actually, at the end of the day, if you're thinking that's per week, it is very much doable. And Liz, I like your comment there on kale. I picked that one up just because it's definitely not a favorite with my family. We prefer the spinach, but it's so good from a health point of view, and you can disguise it, definitely. Okay, so just moving on with the slides as well here. Practically, how does one do this? And I don't have a lot of slides today because I actually want to have a conversation, and I think it's quite important that we all sort of ask questions and discuss all of this, because different people have different experience and different challenges. But now, in terms of just sort of practically, and I have to tell you up front as well, so this has been something that I would see as sort of a challenge area for myself, or a weakness for myself, and I'm a dietitian. Is to get all of this variety in. I know how important it is, and we can see from the science and all the recommendations that it is really important. But when you join up your shopping list at the beginning of the week, you just sort of all the staples, the kids, husband, everybody's going to like these meals, we'll just stick to it, it works. It's quick, easy, I know how to prepare them, sorted, done. But now we need to get out of that habit. And what I've done and what works really well for us as a family is that we actually decided to sort of redesign our pantry. And we've got a shelf where we've got all the different grains. So I've actually put a picture up here just to show you a little snippet. of what our pantry cupboard typically looks like. It's not always in that pretty arrangement with the herbs there. But the point is we're using different jars, and we're using glass jars, just so we can see what's actually there. And it reminds us to make sure that we're throwing different grains into the mix. So it's not just a case of, okay, well, let's have our typical brown basmati rice, because that works, everyone likes it. Or let's go for our whole wheat pasta. We know that's always a winner in most families. But this just actually reminds you and says, you know what, it's in your face, it's written there. Say, what about me? You can see the different levels. You can see what you need to use more of, what you need to use less of. You can see popcorn's quite popular in our house as well. Also a whole grain, a good healthy grain. And then other things that often we don't try. We know of, but we don't try. Buckwheat is another one, sort of bulgur wheat, barley, spelt. All of those are traditional grains. They have been around for many, many, many moons. And they've got each one has got their own sort of profile of goodness, of different fiber content. They've got different B vitamins. And I'd urge you all to actually do something similar and go a little bit out of your comfort zone and just try something new. The worst thing that could be is that the family says, oh, not so keen on that. But you need to experiment, you need to try. And the other place then when you would get your 30 plus different plant foods a week would obviously be your vegetables, your fruits, and your herbs. So what we've actually done recently, I did that with my oldest daughter Kate again as well, is we decided, why don't we plant all our own herbs? We've had a few in the past, but we thought, no, let's actually, we were growing strawberries, which weren't doing so well, so we've now replaced all the strawberries with some herbs, fresh herbs. And just sort of seeing them there, knowing that they're there, we're experimenting a whole lot with different meals. And each of those herbs, I mean, if you get a book on herbs as well, we don't always know all the nutritional benefits, but they've all got a different profile, they've all got different phytonutrients, and that's a really easy way to actually get in a whole lot of goodness and variety into your diet. It's not to say that you have to have fresh herbs. It's quite fun actually growing them and getting the kids involved if you have kids as well. And fresh herbs, definitely, they've got a stronger taste, I'm sure you'll know. They definitely, I prefer fresh herbs over dried herbs, but we also have a cupboard full of dried herbs. And just remember that using a variety of herbs is a fantastic way to increase the amount of plant food that you're eating. Okay, I'm just having a look at a few of the comments. I feel like I've just been talking. Okay, so there's quite a few people who do sort of eat just plant-based, and also adding, I mean, that's a good example there from Callie as well. It's sort of adding your greens to your smoothies as well, and for kids as well. Sometimes the color puts them off a little bit, but if you can get them to taste that, fantastic. But that's also a way of disguising foods that aren't typically sort of acceptable or enjoyed into a medium that we know is enjoyed, something like a smoothie. I think I'm not trying to make everybody just eat plant-based protein. That's definitely not my mission. A lot of people only do that, and that's fine. But what I would like to encourage everyone to do is just to go out of your comfort zone a little bit. Just experiment a little bit with the different grains. Experiment also with the different protein foods. So when we mentioned sort of the red meat and the chicken and the eggs and the fish, those are sort of our staple animal or animal-based proteins, and they all have a place. But yeah, that first slide that I showed you, that shows you sort of what kind of a place they should have and the priority that they should take in your diet, in your eating plan. The other thing as well is that when you go to the shops, just have a look. There are so many. If you actually have your eyes open and you're looking, you will see so many fruits and vegetables that you possibly didn't actually know existed. You possibly won't even recognize the name of them. And just do yourself a favor and go and have a look. Experiment, try different things. You don't have to sort of buy in bulk and save if you're not sure if you're going to enjoy it. But try and maybe share it with a friend. Just experiment. Go out of your comfort zone. And definitely from what I said there as well, is that just try and stock your pantry, make it visible. Because often life happens, we get busy, we don't think. We're on sort of automatic pilot in the evenings when meals have to be prepped. and you forget about the quinoa you've got or the bulgur wheat you've got, and you just go the standard thing you used to, the norm. So once, if it's in your face and you can actually see everything, it reminds you a lot of the time as well to add that variety. What I typically also recommend to my clients on the one-on-one program is to plan your week. And I know it's so important, this planning. Everybody knows it's important, but set aside some time on the weekend, whenever it is, sort of before you go shopping, and chat to the family, chat to your spouse, decide, okay, these are from Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, these are the meals that we're going to have, and this is the protein. Always start with the protein source. So say, okay, we're going to have fish twice a week, we're going to have the red meat once a week, we're going to have eggs the other day of the week, and just build up what sort of your base protein is going to look like for the week. Then, when it comes to variety, that's where you're going to mix it, you're going to dress it differently. So then you want to have different vegetables every day if possible. You want to have a different grain every day as well. So maybe one day is your whole wheat pasta. The next night will be your brown basmati rice that you have with that protein that you've selected for the week. Also, obviously, a lot of those sort of the legumes, what I've got in our pantry cupboard as well, and I have to admit, a lot of them are tinned, and that's absolutely fine, because to sort of cook legumes like chickpeas and lentils and beans from scratch just takes too much time, to be honest. A lot of the research as well showed, and a lot of people tolerate the canned legumes a lot better, simply because a lot of the compounds that can cause problems with IBS and bloating, they've leached out. They've had longer time to leach out, which means that now you actually tolerate those legumes a lot better if you're somebody who typically doesn't. So stock the pantry with those as well. So if you're looking for more of a plant-based meal and plant-based protein, you then have a look at that. You take out some beans and throw that in the mix. And I think also, so legumes typically puts a lot of people out of their comfort zone. So I would urge you to sort of experiment with that. You'll see as well on our library, on the web app, that we have quite a few. There's loads of recipes, but there's quite a few now that do also include sort of disguising some of the foods that typically aren't loved by everybody. Some, like the legumes. I think quite a few of my clients have tried that sort of bean and banana muffin, which sounds scary but tastes delicious. So if you haven't, please try that. But that's a way of sort of incorporating plant foods that you typically wouldn't eat on their own. Okay, let's have a look and see if there's any questions coming through. Okay. Oh, yes, thank you, Amy. Yes, absolutely. There's a plant-based WhatsApp group, which will be great if you can join. I'm also part of that group, so if you've got any questions, you're more than welcome to post them there. But I think there's a huge number of knowledgeable plant-based eaters as well who can share some fantastic advice there as well. Okay, if you pickle or pesto your herbs, does this change the values? That's from Callie. Absolutely not. So in terms of values, I'm assuming that you're meaning sort of values of calorie content and that type of thing. No, absolutely. So do that. Add herbs, add as many as you can. Herbs typically count absolutely nothing. They are a non-starchy vegetable. So from a calorie point of view, you do not need to worry. So that's another reason to use more herbs and your non-starchy vegetables. Then throw those in the mix, because they're sort of, you can go wild. You can literally go wild. You can add so many of those different plant-based foods without worrying about increasing your calorie intake. So that's a fantastic question. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. More smoothies, please. I see from Sue. I don't know if that's a cry out to someone in your family, or more smoothie recipes, but we can definitely add some more smoothies. And yes, also, I mean, typically in our family as well, we go with, because of the kids, you go with the standard sort of banana, strawberry, apple, the fruits that kids typically like. But definitely go out of your comfort zone there. Add either some fruits that are different, papaya, pawpaw, different berries as well, but the greens, absolutely. And if you can get it sort of a quite like luminous green, I think the kids find that a lot more appealing than that sort of dark, sludgy green that scares them off a little bit. All right, I'm just going through some of the comments here. From Noel, what are good gluten-free grains? Okay, so there you'll see, I mean, you saw on my shelf there, the quinoa, the buckwheat, those are some of the common gluten-free grains. You get oats as well. Sometimes oats, you'll see they don't sort of have gluten-free. Typically, they should be gluten-free, but sometimes there's a risk of contamination if they're prepared in a factory where the other grains are prepared. So if you want to be 100% sure that there's no gluten in there, you would go with the oats that specifically state gluten-free on the outside. And typically you would get those at sort of health stores as opposed to your sort of grocery stores. Okay, so there you are. So you can get, I mean, there's a huge range of gluten-free grains as well to experiment and try with, and you don't need to have a problem with gluten or be gluten intolerant to use the gluten-free grains. I mean, you should be using a wide variety of all of those. And that said, I mean, maybe we should just sort of touch briefly on gluten intolerance in terms of the grains, is that if you're not gluten intolerant, if you're fortunate that you're not, fortunate enough, and often it's just a dose thing. So some people sort of can tolerate some gluten, but not too much gluten. So what I'm urging you to do there is don't exclude all the gluten-free grains because you think from a health point of view, the gluten-containing grains, because you feel that from a health point of view, the gluten-free grains are healthier. That's not the case. Unless you actually have an issue with gluten, I would urge you to include all of those sort of gluten-containing grains because you're getting so much variety there. And wheat is typically also sort of whole wheat is a great grain to say that 3 times, is a good and healthy grain to eat. It gives the profile of soluble fiber and insoluble fiber is fantastic. And remember, when it comes to fiber, all of these grains are contributing different amounts of fiber, and we need that fiber for general gut health, for overall health, for control of blood sugar levels, control of cholesterol levels as well. Okay, so let me see. Recipes, Sue, lots of recipes. So we're constantly adding recipes to the library, and we will constantly do that. And a big goal of mine as well is to give those recipes where we do hide some of the ingredients, to be honest, because a lot of what I use and what I prepare at home is for kids as well. And you don't want to be preparing separate meals for kids and adults. It's just not going to last. It's not sustainable. So yeah, I often do get quite creative and clever around how to disguise some of the ingredients in order to get the variety in. Okay, have I missed any questions? Okay, salmon stir fry from Delene. That sounds absolutely delicious. Love it. So there, obviously, you're ticking the box in terms of a nice lean and healthy protein, which is the salmon, and then all the veggies that you add to that. Fantastic. That sounds great. Okay. All right, so let me move on now to, I've got another slide, one page, and it's a little bit of a challenge slide. So what I'd like to challenge you to do this week, and so when you're working on your plan for the next week and getting some inspiration from our weekly menu, which you'll get this afternoon, go a bit out of your comfort zone and add at least one new green vegetable to your shopping list. And you know what, even better, take one that you've never seen before. And I promise you will find a green vegetable in the grocery store that you actually didn't know existed. If you're looking for it, you'll find it. So go out of your comfort zone, give us feedback, let us know how it went. And then on top of that as well, try a new grain. For many of you, you would have tried a lot of the different grains, and something like quinoa might not be new to you, or buckwheat might not be new. Even couscous. I think typically most of us in the past have gone for sort of the refined couscous, but look for the whole wheat couscous. It definitely adds a whole new dimension in terms of fiber, and it's a lot healthier than your regular couscous. The same with pasta as well. If you're typically someone who just sort of uses your typical refined pasta, the one that looks sort of white or yellow, go out of your comfort zone and use the brown, the whole wheat. It's a much darker brown color, and go for the whole wheat pasta. Your kids, I promise you, they'll taste it the first time and they'll say, something's different, but they'll actually learn to love it. The whole family will. It's not a dramatic change. So maybe if you've never tried the whole wheat pasta, do that this week. Make that your new grain to try. But otherwise, look for another grain and include that in the mix. And then also another challenge, plant 2 or 3 fresh herbs as well that you normally don't use. So look at the ones you don't have dried herbs for. And go and plant those, nurture them, use them. I think there's so much to be said about sort of planting your own fruit and vegetables as well. Herbs are great if you don't have a lot of space as well. They need a bit of water, but not too much TLC otherwise. Just give them a bit of compost to start off with. But yeah, I would urge you and challenge you to do that as well. All right, so that's your challenge for the next week coming ahead. But let me know your thoughts, and I'd love to get feedback as well after next week. I think it's so important to challenge ourselves and to go out of our comfort zone. And like I said, this has been a big thing for me, a big move for me, because I got very comfortable with just sort of serving up the same thing. It's healthy meals, yes. It's balanced with respect to protein and starch and fats, but you're actually doing yourself a little injustice there because you could be doing a whole lot better. All the research shows that having a variety of food is optimal for good health. And just also sort of on that note as well, I think for our kids and for those of you who have kids, it's quite good to sort of instill that concept from early on. I think we sort of missed the mark a little bit as well with our girls because we got into that comfort zone. You're feeding them healthy foods, but from a variety point of view, yeah, definitely our girls didn't get enough variety. And they almost get sort of used to having the same old. So I would urge you to do that as well with your kids, is just try, even from a young age, try and get them to taste different foods. And if they don't like it in the beginning, that's absolutely fine, but don't label them. Don't label somebody as, oh, they're never going to eat kale, or they're never going to eat avocado, or they're never going to eat nuts or seeds, or whatever it might be. Reintroduce it at a later stage, and perhaps in a different form as well. Okay, I'm just going to go and have a look here because I'd hate to run out of time and not answer all your questions. Let's have a look here. What is a clean way to cook couscous that still has flavor? Okay, so when it comes to couscous, I use, as I said, the whole wheat couscous. And they're literally, I mean, that's probably one of the easiest grains to prepare. We add just a little bit of actually dried sweet basil. We've got the fresh sweet basil now that we're growing, which we'll try once it's established itself. But yeah, we add a little bit of salt, literally a little bit, and then a whole lot of sweet basil. And then you soak it for your 10 minutes, and it's absolutely delicious. Yeah, so it's plain, it's basic, but you then add extra flavor by adding your different vegetables. So if you're making sort of a stir fry with couscous, add a load of greens, and go wild with the herbs as well. It absorbs the flavor so beautifully as well. So couscous is a really good one to use if you want to experiment with different herbs. Okay, with quinoa, is red or white better, or does it not matter? From Shirley. You know what? The answer there, the simple answer is both. So they've both got different qualities. Have red one week or white the next week. Or a combination. They often come sort of combined together. So the more variety, the better. Even if something is super, super healthy, like quinoa, red quinoa or white quinoa, whatever it is, too much of a good thing is not great, and that applies to everything in life. So you want variety, you want moderation as well. The problem with having something like that that's healthy and just having that, it's not that it's unhealthy to have that, but it's because you're excluding all the other really good grains, plant-based foods, other foods that you could be having instead. I hope that made sense. But yeah, so my answer there would be both. Okay. Can I use chicken feet as protein? Absolutely. So if that appeals, absolutely do that. I can't say I have, but yes, there's lots of goodness there and sort of the collagen, all of that. Absolutely. That's definitely an option. And the more variety you can get, the better, definitely. But what I would urge when we get on the subject now, thank you, Martina, the subject of protein, like I said in the beginning as well, get variety. But when it comes to variety, try and get more variety in the form of the fish. So if you remember that picture we had in the first or the second slide, the place you need to focus on is variety in the fish department. So when it comes to the chicken and the eggs, the poultry and the red meat, yeah, we're not encouraging you to go and try every single different type of red meat every day of the week, because obviously there the saturated fat content gets a bit high. Those wouldn't be classified as the healthiest forms of protein. There's a lot of iron, so there's place for red meat, definitely, and there's place for chicken and eggs. I wouldn't ever deny that, but it would be in a much smaller amount than the vegetables and the fish. Okay, Any other questions? I see recipes. We're constantly adding new recipes. So yeah, watch that space. We'll definitely continue to do that. Any more questions before we wrap up? So if you think of any more questions, and for those people who are going to be watching this session in playback, please just drop me a message. Yeah, you can direct message me. I'd love to hear from you. And also just let me know how your experimenting goes next week. Post your pictures and share your information, share your findings with everyone. We'd all love to sort of learn from your experiences as well. And I think that's what's so nice about Jeff as well, is that everybody shares. It's a community, so we can all learn from each other. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this chat with everyone. Thank you so much for those of you who've been able to watch live. And big challenge, just experiment. Yeah, it's so important from a health point of view to try different foods. Yeah, and add more variety to your daily intake. But have an awesome weekend. Good luck with your planning, and good luck with your shopping. And let us know what your new green veggie for the week is going to be, as well as your new grain. But take care, everyone. We're really, really excited to hear back from you. Cheers.